We are live once again. Historic Sim Racing Organization presents round 16 of the 1999 or 91 F1 series at Adelaide, Australia. I am Jason White. I will be your commentator for this race, and I am joined in the booth by Alberto Ibañez. Alberto, good evening.
Good evening, everybody.
So, this is the final race of the season. The championships have been wrapped up. Let's take a look at those point standings for those of you who are not aware of where things stand. Driver points, David Jakes wrapped up the championship a long time ago with 118 currently. And Mikhail Yannick pretty much has second position roundup as well. So the battle really is going to be for, I think, fourth place between Mikola and David Yunt. Chapman has 30 points in third, so the best they can do is be even to to Mick. So we look at the car standings for the constructors. We have Jordan, 92 points, Ferrari 72, McLaren 57, Benetton and Dallara are tied with 48. So the cars are doing their warm-ups right now, and you can see the heavy mist. We are doing this race in the rain. So the question will be, how many cars will be running at the end, Alberto?
Well, it's certainly going to be an attrition race. That's evident by now because it has two of the worst possible conditions that you can have when you're racing. Namely, first, it's a street course with those very unforgiving walls. And second, as we have already said, and it's quite evident, we have rain. Yes, rain here in our factor, because this is one of the few mods that is well prepared. It's a very high quality mod. It's well prepared for having such wet conditions in it. It has wet tires, and the track prepared by Mr. Francois Remen, who has been delighting us all season with this wonderful modification in the tracks. The track is also very well prepared for this. We can see the water spray jumping high in the air.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's take a look at the track map really quick. This is a circuit that I really miss, at least when I watch racing these days on television. I really wish that the Australian Grand Prix was still at this circuit. Probably one of the few street circuits that can be driven in a really competitive fashion. It's not start, stop all the time. There's actual width to the track, and there's been some pretty competitive races at Adelaide over the years. 2.362 miles around, 81 laps or 2 hours, and obviously under these conditions I think we're going to hit the 2 hours first.
Yeah, we should be.
All right, so we've got about 10 minutes to go before the race starts, so let's take a moment here and run through the grid for the final race of this season. On the pole, Victor Montenegro in the Dallara Judd with a time of 1:12.915. Alongside him, we have Pascal Mikola. He lost his McLaren drive, and he's now using this Williams Renault in a one-off drive. Row 2, David Jakes, champion of this series, with a time of 1:13.500. Alongside him, Raymond Ridal driving the Gianni Morbidelli Ferrari. You remember Prost had been fired by this point in 1991. Starting in fifth place, we have his teammate Mikhail Yannick in the John Alesi Ferrari. Starting sixth, Jan Kowalski in the McLaren Honda. He picked up this drive for the very last race of the season. And Francois Remen, who's done so much good work for us with the tracks, starts seventh in the Dallara Judd. Eighth, Brian Janik makes an appearance in the top 10 with the Bernardi Ferrari. Row 5, we have Juha Boss in the Benetton Cosworth. And David Yunt makes the last start of the year in a Tyrrell Honda. Now let's look at the rest of the starters. 11th through 14th first, Martin Messina, Gabriel Del Piccolo, Paolo Rossetti, and Mick Chapman. 15 through 18, Philippe Martinelli, Jean Team from the IndyCar Series, Gerard Rion, and Yves Boisset. 19 through 22, we have Chris Stephens, Richard Coxon, Jonathan Assercliffe, and Alessandro Riola. The last cars on the grid, Ole Marius Mervold, Philippe Enrique, Jason Whited, and Bruno Chacon. That's your grid. Predictions.
Harder than ever. Because in these conditions, anything can happen. It's obvious that there are two cars that are always with the best conditions in the track. That's the Williams. Those cars were very superior in this season. And right now, Pascal Mico.
You dropped out for a second there.
He is clearly one of the favorites if he can keep his head cool through all this rain. Then there's also Jan Kowalski, who is a very quick driver and is, I think, quite good impersonation of Ayrton Senna, which is the car that he's driving, because he's also quite an aggressive driver, and as we have seen, plays very well in the wet. So my pickup for the two favorites would be both of them. Any of them can win the race, as well as, of course, our fast Brazilian Victor Montenegro. Rather a bit of an unknown because very fast, which is true. One must also take into account that he must suffer a bit from the same handicap that Greg Wasson suffered at the beginning of the season. That means he must be going way over the limit to be able to stay with the quicker cars. Always an additional toll on his concentration and always gives him more chances of doing something wrong and failing there, or having a shunt or making an error. So we'll see.
All right, so the cars are now, we are now officially in the warm-up session, so we have 10 minutes to go until the start here. So this will give everybody a chance to get a little bit loose if they haven't already, and they'll also be, well, as an administrative point, we'll be getting the grid in order, which is my job. We're looking at Victor Montenegro right now. He's the pole sitter for this race, driving the BMS Dallara. And this is the view that he's going to hope he's going to have for most of the race without any mist in front of him. Because when you're driving in these wet weather conditions, Alberto, having a clear track in front of you, being the leader, is a very nice place to be.
Yeah, pole is definitely one of the biggest advantages here when you're diving in the rain. You can keep your nose in front already past the first corner. Then anybody who is trying to overtake you is going to have a real problem. Not just because of the visibility, but as I was commenting with some of the drivers in the previous session, before the broadcast started, because there seems to be a very definite line around in the wet. So if you're exiting the perfect line, you suddenly find yourself in a very, very slippery track. So it won't be easy at all to overtake.
No, and normally these cars are lightweight enough that if you do get out of line a little bit, you can get it back quickly. But there is a bit of a delay I've noticed when I'm running in here. Like if you overshoot one of these corners, for example, one of the sharp right angle corners, you may not get it back quick enough to correct everything if you let off. The car will just skid out to the outside.
One of the very important things will be here throttle control for the driver when they start the race.
Yes.
Because in this case, for example, in the case of Victor Montenegro, he did a great pole, but the pole, we must remember, was done on the drive.
Yes.
That means that a very high quality driver can lower his wings in benefit of getting quicker top speeds in higher top speeds in the quicker section. And he can get away with that with some quality driving. But once you are here with a full tank in the wet, you need for certain a much higher wing, which means right now his weaker engine will be more evident and the lack of downforce also will be. Therefore, he will have that additional difficulty here in the race session. So we will see first of all who is able to exit well, to depart well from the start, because obviously when you're starting, there is absolutely no aerodynamic downforce until you're going to some speed. And that means that the advantage of the best aerodynamic cars like the Williams or like the McLaren disappears from the standing start. And if you compound that with the fact that it's a slippery track in the wet, then you obviously see that it will be 99.9% throttle control from the driver. So anything can happen here in the start.
All right, well, we'll have to keep a close eye, too. Oh, goodness, just there you saw one of the Jordans. I can't see you. That's Jason Fitch. Lost his front wing just behind Victor Montenegro. So this is a situation where you really have to be judicious when you approach certain corners. Otherwise, if you make any kind of contact, well, that's even if you can see where you're going, first of all, because we're going to see during the race that people aren't going to be able to see much of anything.
Yeah, the further back you go, the grid, the worse the visibility will be. So it's going to be very scary at the beginning. Drivers will warn in the briefing and asked to be really, really prudent here.
Yes, absolutely. All right, well, while we have a second, oh goodness, see, there we go. Victor goes right into the wall. There goes his wing. Just that easy. All right,
Yeah,
so
it can even not be your fault, but
Mhm.
as long as you touch someone else and you lose a wing, that's it.
Well, let's take a quick look also at what's coming up soon at HSO. Coming up next week, we have a very anticipated race. Our final round of the 1988 Kart Series, the Miami Indy Challenge. We have 3 drivers who could potentially win the championship. This is going to be one of the most momentous races in HSO history. And then,
It is indeed.
yeah, and then the following week we have the final round of our World Endurance Championship 1982 series, and that is the Brands Hatch 1,000 kilometers. Both of those servers and race threads will go up following this race.
So we will end our season for the open wheelers both in street tracks. So we can promise that in Miami there will be dry conditions.
The interesting thing right now, Alberto, is that there's only 22 people on the server, and we've got. It's really strange because we have 26 qualified and we're missing 4. So I'm not sure what's going on here.
I'll have to check the forum if someone's having problems logging in, but
I don't know.
certainly there's
none
always
that I'm
someone who
aware
misses
of.
a race.
None that I'm aware of.
There's always someone who misses a race in the last moment, but 4 people is certainly a lot.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's a really nice day where everybody else is at. Although now we got a few coming in here. Now we have 26. Okay, that's good.
Ah, there you go.
All right. Crisis averted. All right. And someone leaves the game right after I set the grid. Oh, wonders
3
never
minutes
cease.
before the race, and you must reckon that in Formula One terms, that is plenty of time.
It's true. Fitch did not qualify for this race. He qualified 27th, so clearly, and when we had Eves in the server, we had 26, so clearly somebody else is still missing.
Well, seems that Jason will be lucky today.
Yeah, he may be. So 2.5 minutes to go. All right, so we should be moving to the race session in just a few seconds. And we have all 26 here, so good news, Alberto.
That's fine. We have our full grid for the start.
Yep, unfortunately, Fitch...
I think this was a great season and didn't deserve less.
Yeah, well, it's certainly been a great season in terms of graphics. We've had, you know, as good as we can do with a 10-year-old platform. We've had some pretty visually excellent races thanks to the efforts of Francois Remen. I know that a lot of people would have wanted to see a closer championship, but at least we're getting that in the IndyCar series. All right, so we're now going to the race session, and everyone's going to have to be very careful because we don't want to have...
These are normally tense moments for everybody. Now you can multiply them by 2, at least.
All right, so we're looking at Montenegro. He's got to get on the grid here. There he is. All right. So we're going to listen for the lights here. Everybody's coming onto the grid. Tense moments. Final race of the 1991 F1 campaign. Revs are coming up. Here come the lights. Buckle your seatbelts. Grab your umbrella. And the race is underway. Good start by Montenegro. Good start by Mikola. Oh, there's contact. Contact. Mikola, though, gets through and into the lead. Oh, he bumps Montenegro again. Now it looks like David Jakes might get alongside. My goodness, fireworks right away. Mikola leads. Montenegro in second. David Jakes is in third. And we have, one of the cars went straight off the track. It was one of the McLarens. Didn't quite get to see who that was.
Chris Stephens is racing, so...
It must have been
Kowalski is
Jan
also
Kowalski.
racing.
It had to have been. Yes, here he is. He rejoined the race. He ran straight into the... yeah, he's back on track now. Doesn't seem to have any damage, but he ran straight into one of the runoff areas. Back to the front. And here's the view from Montenegro's car. And he's got that mist in his face.
This is stopping.
Yeah, having a look down the inside here. Everybody coming through the hairpin. Hopefully everybody will get through unscathed. Everybody doing... Ooh, some contact there between a LaRousse and a... I believe that was a Brabham.
And Victor Montenegro is
Montenegro's off the track. Montenegro is off the track. There is the confirmation. He's back on now. Goodness, not a very good opening lap. God, very, very eventful first lap.
To 9th position.
All the way down to 9th now. As here they come streaming through. Goodness, this is a pretty hairy first lap for these cars. You got both McLarens together, but they're way back down the field.
David Jakes is starting to put a bit of pressure on Pascal Mikula. He's obviously well aware that Brad Riddle is behind them coming close.
Yeah, and these Ferraris...
doesn't himself pressed from behind.
So David Jakes is now really putting the pressure on Pascal Mikola. On board now with David Jakes.
And behind them also an interesting battle will be shaping up because David Junt is right behind Francois Remen, who is in a fantastic fourth position right now. Junt coming out the slipstream to see. You will be seeing that maneuver a lot in the race because, oh, there's carbon fiber somewhere. Someone's lost a part of it. Oh, it's Francois Remen.
Francois Remen?
Oh, that's really bad luck for him.
Oh,
he seems to have lost his front wing.
Hang on a minute. What happened? Oh, goodness, he's gone straight into the... Okay, let's... Okay, here's...
he collided with David Junt. He spun and he lost his front wing there and then hit the wall.
All right, we're going to do a replay here to see what happened. They're coming down Brabham straight. Here's the replay. David Junt, like you said, coming out to get a good look at something. It looks like Francois ran wide, came back onto the track and lost the back end, and that put him right to the side of Mikola. So, I'm sorry, right into the side of David Junt. So, and then he runs clear off the track and loses a wheel out of the race. So, That's unfortunate, and it wasn't.
Felipe Martinelli has also retired.
Goodness. So we've already lost. That's 3 retirements now. And we've got Yves Placé moved backwards on the circuit now. I don't know what that's about. Dropping down the circuit, but but he's able to return to the action. I don't know what happened there.
Well, this is a race in the rain, and we will see a lot of this.
Martin Lacina is out of the race. Goodness, now we have 5 retirements. Felipe Enrique is out of the race. See if we can see what happened to Felipe Enrique. Here he is. This is a replay. Oh, and he left. So maybe that was a disco. Who knows?
So in the head of the race, David Jackson is still putting a lot of pressure on Pascal Mikula, but hasn't been able to make it through.
Yeah, he's pushing him really hard. There's some parts and pieces loose back there. Not sure what that's about. But we have Mikula leading, David Jakes in second, and Ray Radal in third in the Ferrari.
And we can see here one interesting detail. If you can focus on the cars, when David Jakes is braking hard, the 4 discs are glowing.
Yes.
Okay. In the case of Pascal Mikula, it's only the front ones, which seems to indicate that he has much more front brake bias than David Jakes has. And that means that in the case of David, if you can control that kind of rearward brake bias, you will be obviously braking a lot better than the other cars in front. So I would expect him to try to pass Pascal on the brakes.
Well, we'll see what happens now, because these two have pulled up a little bit of a gap here. It looks like Ray Radal's slipping back a little bit. Here's Ray Radal, and he is correctly using Gianni Morbidelli's car, because everyone should know that Alain Prost by this time was fired. And you'll notice I have not mentioned the name of Michael Yannick, and I don't see him. Let's see what's happened here. He's down in 6th now. Okay, so he must have slipped back a little bit there. We have one car into the pits. It's one of the LaRusses. It is Paolo Rossetti, and he comes in. He's obviously got some damage to his car. Drops off the jacks. So, obviously, this is going to send him right down the order. Mikula looks like it's still pretty close. David Jakes is just going to hang back there and wait for Pascal to make some kind of an error, I think. Although he's got
Both drivers are the only ones in 1.23.
Here he comes. He's down the inside now.
24.
Here he comes down the inside. David Jakes has taken the lead at the racetrack hairpin from Pascal Mikula.
Yes, predicted he came under the brakes after studying Pascal for some laps. He decided that was the place, and Pascal obviously was well aware of it and made the maneuver easy for David.
Yeah, but this is not going to. Pascal's obviously not going to take this lying down. He's going to he has an opportunity here to counterattack this lap if he can keep up with David Jakes. Meanwhile, it looks like Ray Radal is starting to come under pressure from David Yunt. You got to wonder about his car, if he incurred any damage with that contact he had earlier.
It's likely that he is seeing some yellow dots in his hat right now, but I'm looking at him now in the straights, and his steering wheel seems to be straight while he's driving in straight lines, so that seems to indicate that at least there is no suspension bend. Maybe, with some luck, it was just bodywork damage, and that means that he can still control the car more or less well.
Now he's losing a little bit of ground. This is, of course, the Satoru Nakajima Tyrrell that's normally driven by Mark Flork and Mark.
So, yes, and another car that seems to be...
Oh, goodness! There's Pascal Mikula. He apparently is at an off somewhere. Let's take a look at the replay. This is the replay. Coming down the inside. Oh, he tried to take the lead and just lost grip and went straight on. He was lucky not to lose his wing. He went straight to the outside wall and just touched it, and then came on and nearly drove into the side of David Yunt as a result. So that's 2 near misses for David Yunt so far through no fault of his own.
It's been quite lucky right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, as we said, there is only really one perfect line.
Mm-hmm.
David Jackson must have studied the track very well when he knew that was a place where he could come out and do the braking. I was talking another car that is doing that had a shunt, but apparently has suffered no damage. Is Jan Kowalski, who is now in 5th, and he's doing an incredible race in the wet. Like we said, well worthy of Ayrton Senna himself. And look at that, he was 9th and falling behind after his incident, but now he's 5th, and he's running in low 1.23s.
Well,
the leader, for reference, is doing high 1.23s.
Well, that could cause the back of the field to close up here. We'll have to see how the race pans out. Jan Kowalski, of course, inheriting this car after it was vacated by Pascal Mikkola. We have to remember that Pascal is a student, and oftentimes his studies get in the way of his sim racing, so it's understandable that eventually he just had too many absences in the car to hang on to it. But he was able to get the Williams for this race as a one-off to close out the year, and Jan Kowalski, the benefactor of that situation, making the most of this, although he did have that unfortunate opening lap. We'll see if he can make up lost ground.
I think, I don't know if you mentioned it, but our friend Jonathan Arthur Clint has retired.
Oh,
the accident.
no.
Yeah, the second McLaren also. And Victor Montenegro, who was 2 laps behind, seems to finally have had to retire because of the damage.
Oh, boy. Well, there goes our...
So
oh, goodness! Jan Kowalski has spun out. He went down one of the escape roads. He's back on now. Nearly drives into the side of Mikael Yannick. Good grief. Let's take a look at a replay of this. Coming through the little chicane after the start-finish. And this is I guess just brakes too late. The back end comes around. It looks like he just has too much brake bias on the back, perhaps. And then he was very lucky to not drive into the side of Yannick there.
Well, as the case we have seen with David Jacks, is certainly the way to go quicker. But you have to control it, and in this case, the bigger Honda engine probably has more engine braking and is more delicate when you're coming very hot into a corner.
And just like that, Kowalski is now going back, or trying to. He's on the inside of Yannick, and he finally gets by. So he goes back up to, I believe that's 5th position. Yes, it is. So Mikael Yannick drops to 6th. And they've got Juha Boss and Del Piccolo
joined your channel.
Getting too close to us as we're joined in the booth by Jonathan Asserklint. Jonathan, you're out of the race. What happened?
I'm a complete idiot, more or less.
Oh, come on. Don't do that.
Nah, well, I was made a bit of a mistake with the setup. The engine was overheating a little bit, so I was watching the temps, and just as I looked down, then I hit the dangerous revs, hit the curb at the same time, and that's it.
Well, you're in good company because there's lots of other people who are out of the race already, including our pole sitter, Victor Montenegro, who had
David Yunt right now.
David Yunt?
Yeah.
Oh no! What happened?
I heard
sure
he
I
had
missed it once.
I heard he had some slight lack of or loss of concentration for a moment.
Well, it unfortunately happened too far back to see, but it appears his teammate Gerard Rion is also in the pits, but he's exited now, and he's the last car running on the circuit at the moment. It looks like he's got some damage to his left front wing on the Tyrrell. But
So meanwhile, things are stabilizing because we have David Jacks in the lead with 5 seconds, and then Pascal Mikula, who has 8 seconds over Ray Riddle. So the action is right now more in the middle of the pack, where Nick Chapman and Gabriel Del Piccolo are fighting it out.
yeah, it's funny. We're right back where we started after all this drama at the front with Jakes leading and Mikkel is now back up to 2nd.
Yeah, there's Juha Post and Gabriele Del Piccolo and Mick Chapman. So they have met a nice Italian sandwich because it's two Benettons and in the middle an Italian driver.
Yes. Oh yeah, here they are. This is yeah, this looks like it could be a really good battle. Juha joined the Benetton team late in the season and has since proved to be really, really good in this car.
So Kowalski, there he is driving great up to fourth. And just for a moment to note the question you had before, I had a look at him quite close at his car, and it's interesting that neither of his four brakes are glowing when he's braking, which seems to indicate that he has a much lower braking pressure than the other cars, which probably is allowing him to modulate much better the brake.
Well, we're watching from the back here, and yeah, this gap seems constant now. We're looking from the back of Juha's car to Del Piccolo and his teammate Mick Chapman, and this is, as Alberto said, the closest battle in the circuit at the moment.
Yeah, but it's so difficult when you have that spray in front of you to try to see something. We see cars always waving. When they are getting close to someone else, they are waving, and it's not just to come out of the slipstream, it's because they can't see a damn
Because they're
thing.
trying to see. Yeah.
Alessandro Iriolo in the Ligia just went off
Oh,
the circuit.
indeed. That's 2 Ligiers out. That's unfortunate.
Well, that's the end of the series for the Ligier team. Not a very good season for... Okay, here we go. Here's the replay. And it appears just another loss of grip going into a corner. After racetrack hairpin, here's the replay. Yeah, the front just pushed out and he went straight into the barrier. Wow. It's unfortunate.
Jan Kowalski, in his quest for speed and reaching the top of the grid, did 1.21 2 laps ago, which is quite amazing. For reference, the head of the race, David Jacks, is going 2 seconds slower than that.
Wow. Okay, so that's going to make things really... Because, you know, when you see David Jakes out in front like this, your first thought is, well, here we go again. Another race dominated by David Jakes. But...
Well, if Jan Kowalski can get in touch, I can tell you that will not be the case.
Yeah, that's my point. It's not going to be that way if the current trend continues. This is why having a good color commentator is so vital, because he's checking the times, I'm looking at the picture. So David Jakes coming down the Brabham Straight now. We've completed 11 laps. In another 3 laps, we will have equaled the distance of the actual race. Of course, we're going to do a full 2 hours. We don't have Tim Schinken to tell us to stop.
That's right.
I really would not, seriously speaking though, about the real race, I remember watching that race with my brother, tape delayed on CBC, because we live in Detroit, and we had no cable, and our parents permitted us to watch tape delayed F1 on CBC, and we stayed up late for this race. They managed to string the race into 1 hour of coverage, getting a lot of commercials in. They just,
I can imagine.
yes, they just spread out everything, and it was a pretty ridiculous race to watch because you couldn't see much of anything, and what little you could see was pretty depressing from a mechanical point of view. Lots of damaged cars, and they finally made the decision to stop the race. I can understand the pressure, though, that would be on someone like Tim Schinken, who was the clerk of the course back in the Adelaide days, to go ahead and start the race anyway, because the world is waiting to watch the race. Millions and millions of dollars on the line. Advertisers, people from all over the world visiting. How would you like to be the one to tell them, sorry, we're not going to have a race?
Certainly.
Yeah.
David Jack seems to have also something in his pocket, because while he's doing more or less steady high 23s, which seems to be what makes him comfortable, occasionally he also ventures into the 22s.
Yes.
But still, Kowalski is really hammering it down because he's doing very low 122s. Last lap was 122 dead. And that means that he's inching ever closer to David Jacks. He's now 90 seconds apart and approximately gaining 1 second per lap.
So the top three are really spread out at the moment, not really in contest. But Kowalski does seem to be gaining rapidly on Ray Ridal's.
Accident. Paolo Rossetti.
Oh,
something
goodness.
Because retired with suspension damage.
All right, let's have a look at the replay. It's the same kind of a situation. He runs clear into the... Let me run that back. Goodness. Yeah, I'm going to have a look at it from the cockpit, too, because I want to see what the steering wheel's doing. Oh, yeah, the back end just slips around, and hard to see what steering wheel action there was there, but seemed to be completely out of his hands. So that's a lot of retirements so far. We also lost John Team on lap 1. We missed that. So out of the race so far, John Team, Francois Remen, Philippe Martinelli, Richard Coxon is out of the race. We missed that too. Philippe Enrique, we saw that. Martin Lucena, Victor Montenegro, the pole setter. Chris Stephens, Jonathan Asserclinth, David Yunt, and Alessandro Riolo, and now Paolo Rossetti. So that is a long, long list of retirements. I'm starting to wonder how many people are going to finish.
The impressions of those retirements are starting to appear in the forum, and I can tell you that there are lots of emoticons there.
Yes, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. This is obviously...
Richard Coxon had pedal issues 15 minutes after started. Then Philippe Enrique, what we suspected, connection lost.
Mm-hmm.
And David Junt said he simply lost concentration, hit the wall and lost the wheel, which seems that didn't have any damage in his car then. If he did not mention it, I think it's safe to assume that he got away from the shunt with just body damage at most.
All right, so Mikkel is now coming up to lap...
No, Kowalski is coming to put pressure on Ray Riddle. He's
oh my goodness, he really is. He's gaining on him hand over fist.
We almost missed that, but he's already there.
Look at that, he's right with him now. He might actually take a shot at it. Here he comes down the inside. He's got him. If he can stay on the island, yeah, he's got him. Although Yannick's going to try to, Ray Riddle's going to try to counterattack, but it looks like he just doesn't have the performance that Jan Kowalski does in that McLaren Honda. Now, and there's okay, this is an interesting development. Ray Riddle is coming into the pits. Why he's doing that, I have no idea. It really should.
It's very interesting. There is no reason to change tires nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, especially at this juncture, I'm not entirely sure what he's doing. Yeah, he changed tires.
Maybe there is enough tire degradation to justify that right now, but it's 15 laps.
That strikes me as very strange. I don't know.
I would have expected them to do maybe one stop. But then, of course, that can depend from your setup and driving and many things.
It could be that he had some kind of an issue with brake balance or something, and it was the kind of thing that you can only change in the pits. I don't know.
Maybe.
But something. I mean, he obviously wasn't as quick as I gotta stop calling that car Pascal because it's not him.
No, it's one of the ironies in life is that Jan Kowalski with the car that Pascal was driving before is about to catch him and put him into trouble.
Yep. Funny how that works out. So right now David Jakes is leading Pascal by 5 seconds, and then you have Jan Kowalski another 12 seconds back. So we're going to keep a close eye on that interval and see how quickly it drops. If the current trend is any indication, it shouldn't be long. Lap 16. So we are now in uncharted territory for the 1991 Australian Grand Prix. We're going further than the actual race.
Yeah, we're already 20% into the race.
Yeah, there are people who were asking on the forum if we were going to only run 14 laps, and I'm like, no.
Well, Going back to the battle between the two Benettons and the only really
It's still
Italian
hot.
in the group.
This is still a very hot battle back here. It's actually really heating up with, and there's another car back there, Brian Janik.
Yeah, with the Minardi, he cocked up with them.
Yeah.
But Gabriele Piccolo is really getting impatient now. He probably is already fed up of having that water spray in his visor.
Yes, and is it fair to say that probably is there a chance that Juha might be holding these guys up?
In front of them is Michal Janak right now in 5th position, who is doing quite discreet race.
Jason
But
Whitehead being
knowing
left
him
here.
as a very prudent racer, it doesn't surprise me a lot, because he's very likely going to be safe and try to collect points towards the end, which is what actually has put him in 2nd position,
Now
the championship.
You can see as we're riding there with Brian Janik down Brabham Straight, you can see, you know, being behind one car with the mist is bad enough. Being behind 3 is much worse. It just gets exponentially worse. You can't see anything. You can make out maybe the periphery of a car. Oh, here comes Chapman. He's going to overtake Juha. Going into, well, he was trying to, but Juha slams the door. No team orders at Benetton today. And now Yannick is going to try to overtake Chapman, take advantage of that, and he gets by. So Brian Janik moves up 1 position. Chapman wants to counterattack. This is really not the place to do it. So yeah, this is a pretty exciting battle back here.
Drivers in these conditions usually tell you that what they do is go by the engine noise of the car in front. So when the car in front lifts before the turn, he's reached his braking point. That's when you more or less do it, gauging by the difference with the car in front, which of course is quite an interesting way of doing things, because if he misses it, then you will miss it too, and a big shunt can happen.
All right, so
You have to really trust the guy in front to do that.
Brian Janik is now closing in on Juha. This group is actually starting to close down too on Michal Yannick. So this could become a 5-car battle at some point here. Into the final corner.
It certainly is not going to be a comfortable situation for Michal Janak, because one thing is to be caught and overhauled by a car that was coming quicker, but 4 angry competitors that are having a battle with themselves and finding yourself suddenly in the middle of it all, that must be not really a comfortable situation.
No, I wouldn't think so. But we're going to look at this shot again in a second, coming down Brabham Straight, and you'll see for yourself just how little Brian Janik sees. Uh-oh, there's a Brabham that's askew. So that was either Yves Placé or, well, Martin Lacine is out of the race, so that was Yves Placé, obviously. So
Just to point out that Kowalski is now 16 seconds from the lead, and about 9 seconds behind Pascal Mikula, so that we keep also that fight in check.
So here's, God. Oh, he's going to pull out and try to pass here, Janik, and he's going to get it done. It looks like, well, no, wait, let's see. Juha counterattacks in the end, but no, he can't get alongside him. So that's 2 positions in 2 laps for Brian Janik. He's on the move. This is a guy who is all about motorsports. I know Brian going a ways back. He and I are both automobile designers. He used to work at Nissan. May still, I'm not sure. But in any case, he and I have worked in the same profession as does Trevor Green. So we know each other from automotive design circles. He's a good guy, very enthusiastic.
And he certainly seems to be really comfortable with the Minardi today.
Yeah, and he's been in this car for a while. When he joined the series, he hasn't been leapfrogging from car to car like some people. So, you know, one of the advantages of being in a car for a while is that you get used to its quirks and you get used to driving it. You know what is appropriate for it, what it does not like. what it does like, and you can that translates into comfort on the racetrack, and being comfortable on a track like this in conditions like this is paramount.
And one guy who I'm surprised to see today a bit far back is Yves Placet. Because here in these conditions, in these wet conditions where it's so slippery, that you can count always with Yves being there, because he's a master of cars that are always sliding and with little grip.
Yeah, here he is, and he's running way down. He's had a few spins, and he's running 12th at the moment, a lap behind. And he's actually spun again just as we're looking at him.
Wait
now.
a moment. Kowalski's difference with, let me check if this was just a sector error, but seems that his difference with the head of the race suddenly increased a lot. Maybe he had a spin.
Well, let's have a look here. Maybe he did. I'm looking at a replay.
I'm missing some times here in the sector table. So
he was just in the pits.
Oh, he came into the pits.
Okay, he made a pit stop. Right, that's the reason.
That's the second tire stop we've seen, and we're only 20 laps into the race. What does that tell you about tire degradation?
Well, he's really hammering it, so it's no wonder that if there is tire degradation, he has been one of the first to have it. But question is, of course, we think that there is no way that David Jackson, Pascal Mikula are going to get away with no tire change.
No.
But they're likely aiming to do one stop. Whereas Kowalski and Ray Riddle obviously were on a two-stop strategy. Because if David Jackson, Pascal Mikula are going for two stops, it doesn't seem to make many sense that they are making it any longer. We are already on lap 21.
God, it's a long time between when David Jakes comes through the picture and when we're still waiting for Pascal Mikula. Here he comes now. Finally. And then Jan Kowalski. So yeah, the battle's going to be for second if pit stops do not intervene.
Might have stopped too, because the difference was not as big. It was 7 seconds, only one lap or two before. Either he had an excursion out of track, or he has stopped too. Pascal Mikula's last lap was in 1.37. So that seems to indicate one of the two situations, either pit stop or exit, track exit.
All right, so right now we're watching Gabriel Del Piccolo, who is being hounded, and I mean hounded by Brian Janik down Brabham Straight. Whoa, they almost ran into the back of Jason Whitehead, who is being lapped. Gabriel takes a defensive line because he's sensing that Brian was going to try him there, and that probably saved the position because that's the move that Brian has pulled the last few laps to. This is a battle for 6th place right now, and they are closing rapidly on Michael Janik. So this should be really interesting here in a second. Boy, Janik is just hooked up today.
It will be interesting from our point of view, but I don't think that Michael Janik is going to share our opinion.
No, Michael Janik is not going to be liking this because he's going to come under pressure from two cars. The only benefit from this is that Del Piccolo has got to look more behind him than ahead of him at the moment because he's got more pressure from Brian Janik than he probably wants to. And the Benetton team has just really been kind of forced out of this picture. Now Del Piccolo is starting to close on Michael. I wonder if Michael made a slight mistake there because he seemed to close up on him quite quickly.
And Del Piccolo has the chance to eat two Ferraris in succession because the other Ferrari is in front of Michael Janik. That's Ray Riddle. There's still quite some distance, but judging by the lap times, it shouldn't be impossible for Riolo to pick it because it's doing high 124s, whereas Del Piccolo is doing in the last lap almost the same. But the gap has been decreasing slowly.
And I'll tell you what, Del Piccolo's got Janik's number on Brabham Straight. Whoa! They just went by. That was Michael Janik, I believe. Yes, it was. So they both move up one place. It appears that Michael made some
he didn't want any trouble.
Was that a mistake on his part, or did he simply just give way?
Oh, oh, yes, I'm seeing it now. He slid there,
He slid. Okay,
and probably he's also on a one-stop strategy
possibly.
because he's doing very steady lap times under the potential of the car if you were going hammering it down. And I think Michal Janak is quite capable of more speed, so it's likely that he's conserving it.
So that battle now between Brian Janik and Del Piccolo has become a fifth-place battle now. That
Sorry to interrupt you,
No, it's
but
right.
Kowalski has already Pascal Mikula in his crosshairs.
oh goodness, well we got to go to that. Yeah, he's got it.
2 seconds gap.
He's getting there. He's still got a little ways to go. Oh, here comes Brian Janik. He's going to try to overtake. No, he ducks back inside, thinks better of it. That was a rare incident instance where Del Piccolo left the door open at the end of Brabham Straight. The last few laps, he's been diving to the inside there just to protect the line.
In normal conditions, when you are in a situation as are Del Piccolo and Janik, Janik would normally probably simply want to follow along, because Del Piccolo is going very quick, he's negotiating traffic quite well, and Janik seems to be able to follow him quite closely. But the thing is, in this situation, because of the spray making things so uncomfortable, you are forced somehow to try to overtake, and not simply to ride along more towards the end of the race, where you will be really trying to go for that position.
Those who are able to stick around, to the end of the race, eventually it will be a little less stressful because the less cars on the track, the less spray. Now Kowalski is right with Mikula. He's right with him, right behind him, as they both overtake.
Not for long, I suspect.
No, not for long. They both overtake Bruno Chacon. Heading up to turn 3 here, or 4, depending on how you count these. This does not seem to be the part of the track where, well, I don't know. He's closing on him now. Just as soon as I say, well, maybe he does a disadvantage here, he does not, clearly. And now we're looking from a chopper view of these two cars. This is another excellent addition to this track that Francois put in for us. And these camera angles are very, very, very close to the ones that you would see on TV in 1991.
And they are almost as spectacular.
Okay, so here's another opportunity. I think he's too far back. Although he's looking down the inside. Oh, Mikula forces. Oh, goodness! Well, they were both lucky to get out of that. Yeah, he really shouldn't have gone for it there, because he was too far back to start with. And Mikula, and actually Mikula's reaction was not probably the best reaction either, because he was going to go squeeze him against the wall.
Probably also didn't expect
That-
Jan to come from
that
so far
too.
behind.
So, at least they both made it out of that in one piece. That could have very easily been a race-ending collision.
If you look at the brake load, like I told you, we see Pascal's. Oh!
Oh! Mikula
Error by
spins!
Pascal.
and-
There it goes, yeah.
Well, let's take a look at the replay of that.
So Pascal Mikula's brake, he must have the brake ducts much more closed, because his brakes are glowing a lot, especially at the front. And what I was telling you before, the fact that Kowalski has less brake pressure, what helps him is that in these wet conditions where you have less grip, you are less liable to to block your brakes, which
Yes.
means that you will be able to brake much better, as we have seen.
Well, his front brake's glowing, rear brake's not, and the back just comes around. Kowalski very lucky to not be collected by that.
Still wondering if he had some kind of damage, but seems his steering wheel is quite straight, so
Seems okay.
yeah, hopefully at most it will be some body work. But we'll see in the next laps whether his lap times are dropping or not.
Okay, well,
His last laps have been really blistering. He ventured into the 120s at some point. He did 2 consecutive laps in 120. So he seems to have still a lot of speed under his sleeve.
Meanwhile, looking at Brian Janik, he's lost some time to Del Piccolo, so that battle has kind of cooled off for the moment.
Yet now they are no longer in traffic.
Yes.
Del Piccolo and him, and the spray is as disturbing as always. But the difference is that the Piccolo is not being held by anyone, whereas Janik, as I said, is suffering the same spray. So it's logical that there is a bigger distance, but likely that he is able to stay at that distance somehow constantly.
All right, so the die is cast now for the battle royale that we have been anticipating. Jan Kowalski is trailing David Jakes by 8 seconds now. Mikkel trails Jan Kowalski by additional 4 seconds. So that 8-second gap between Kowalski and Jakes we'll have to keep a close eye on and see how quickly it drops. And the other thing that'll be interesting is if David Jakes is able to respond. My guess is he will be able to. He may be holding something in the back of his pocket.
So I can confirm you right now from Kowalski's last lap that his car must not be damaged because he did a fantastic 120.5.
Wow.
By comparison, David Jack's last lap, wow, incredible, is 120.5. But his previous laps had been 22.21, and I mean he's obviously starting to feel the pressure. He's clearly monitoring, gauging with the blink of his eye the difference. His hood, and when he saw Kowalski coming such a way, he started to be on the move because senses that this is not going to be comfortable for him. Bear in mind that David Jacks hasn't stopped, as far as we know.
That's true.
The difference in the gap, let me check the previous laps because the difference in the gap dropped and... No. All his laps seems to be the 20-something, so he hasn't stopped yet.
Well, the gap between Jakes and Kowalski is pretty solid right now. It's not.
I know. Sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 laps ago, he must have stopped because there is a lap in 1.36.
Yeah. Oh my
So
goodness.
yeah, indeed, there must have been a stop.
Are you referring to Jakes or Kowalski? Sorry.
Jakes.
All right. The gap
now
is
doing
starting to
120s.
drop now. The gap is 7.9 seconds now between Jakes and Kowalski.
Yes, and that's despite Jakes having started to go quicker. But Kowalski is still almost a good half a second quicker.
And you can just barely see Jakes exit the picture there. So there's a little green blip on the horizon that is going to be a nice carrot for Jan.
One of the possible explanations also is that the McLaren with the big Honda engine was known to be a quite thirsty car.
True.
So it's probably that he had to load much more fuel than David Jacks, and in these conditions, in the wet, the lap times are slower, no car normally needs to go for the full tank.
That's
So
true.
the difference here could be quite important, yes. Because in other races you see that the driver has to fill it and then play a bit with the economy via the boost settings. But in this case it's likely that they can go on a higher boost setting if they really want it, if they can cope with that on track. And the fuel tank is more than enough for that.
When you say boost in this case, you mean fuel mixture, correct?
Yes, it's
These are normally aspirated, so
it's mapped as boost, yeah, but it's full mixture.
from lean to rich.
Exactly. So barely 6 seconds now.
Yeah, the gap is definitely coming down. So we're gonna have a big fight on our hands very quickly here. I need to step away from the microphone for just a moment. I'll be right back.
And it's no wonder because in the last lap David Jacks must have made some kind of slight error because he did it in 122.1, whereas in the case of Jan Kowalski, who is already under 6 seconds, he did it in 121. So there was almost a full second there gained by him.
That is a very easy mistake to make in these conditions. It could be as easily as David maybe overdoing it a little bit in one of the turns, riding a curb a little bit, and that loses you a
Kowalski
good
just had
second
a
or
peek
so.
at him across the chicane on the other side, the hairpin, sorry, on the other side, which is, as we know, always a motivation factor you have inside the car you're following.
Very much so.
Steady now in high fives, but that's likely because David Jacks has stepped up a bit the game. Yet I think he isn't really comfortable having to go that much quicker now. Because he did 2 laps in 120s. Then came that error, 122, and the last lap was 121, which seems to indicate that if he ventures into the 120s, he starts making some errors, and he's not comfortable in that situation.
Okay,
But
gentlemen, I'm back.
Kowalski is now only 4 seconds.
Wow, okay. I'm sorry, seeing all this digital water getting thrown up in the air was making me thirsty. So I grabbed myself a lovely cool beverage.
When
Which I
David
suspect there's not
gets
water.
held up a little bit.
Oh no! Yeah, and Kowalski spins out, but he doesn't hit anything. So
And
that's
he keeps the engine running.
that delays the battle we were going to see for a little bit. Now he's got Mikola closing on him.
Yeah, and the gap.
Let's see a
is in
replay of
9
this.
seconds.
Here's the replay. Just loops it around, puts the power on a bit too early. So the question is, how much time did that cost him? It's back up to 9 seconds now, so we're back where we started.
5 seconds.
Yeah.
5 seconds cost him because he was barely 4 seconds behind David Jackson. I know there must be now a very happy Canadian there in the front.
Oh, Brian Janik, meanwhile, is starting to close in again on Del Piccolo. I've been informed, actually, looking at the chat, that the cameras for this circuit were made by Brian Janik himself. And that's been the way the team has been working so far with these tracks, or at least recently. Francois Remen doing the track graphics and Brian Janik doing the cameras. Good teamwork with these two.
So Kowalski now has eaten up another second from David Jacks. He's not certainly lowering his
Here comes
pace.
Janik. Down the inside. Look at, oh, whoa, look out, guys. Oh, goodness. Side by side. Is he going to take him on the outside? No, they're still side by side going into the corner. Finally, Janik gets by.
Racing.
Finally, Janik gets by.
And also great driving by Gabriele Del Piccolo.
Yeah.
Because that was real precision racing. I mean, you must trust the other guy and know that he is skilled enough to do that, go in parallel 3 corners. It was really great in the wet.
Well, that's fantastic driving from both of them. And that brings Brian Janik into the top 5, finally. Ray Radal, meantime, is having a really quiet race compared to his cohorts. He's in 4th place, but he hasn't seen much action in this race. It's been pretty quiet for him.
So Kowalski now under 8 seconds now, 7.9 from the David Jacks.
So in 2 short laps, he's right back at the gap he had probably just about 2 laps ago. So he's
It's
oh goodness! Oh,
it's really amazing.
oh man! He just had to take avoiding action there, real quickly, because let's look at a replay of this from his point of view. Coming into the station hairpin, I believe Jason Whitehead had an off. Let's see. Yeah, here he is rejoining the track off the grass, and Kowalski does a good job of avoiding him. There wasn't a lot of room there for Whitehead to maneuver in the first place.
No, but it seems that this McLaren Marlboro with the yellow helmet gives you some extra speed in the wet.
Yeah, and when people see that yellow helmet, they're more likely to get out of the way. Now he's overtaking Juha, so that.
Whoa!
Yeah, I know that was a bit hairy there.
And
And
Kowalski is certainly today in the winning mood, and you can see it in his driving. He's certainly making to everybody clear he's the boss now in the track. He can suffer some bad luck or have incidents with maybe like we've seen a spin too much throttle, but that's the guy that looks like a winner right now on track, and he knows it.
Well, the problem now is he's got a lot of traffic to contend with. Didn't have this before, so we'll have to see how this affects the gap between himself and the leader, David Jakes. Comes to the inside, takes Ole Marius Mervold.
No, there was Yves Placet. Sorry.
Oh, yes, it was. Sorry, I'm a bit ahead of myself. Ole is the next car in line. Sorry about that.
You can always count with Yves Placet being safe around you.
Yeah, Yves is a very judicious driver in situations like this. Very experienced. So Kowalski now is going to. And there's Ole. Ole joined the series quite late. You may remember him as being. Oh goodness, what was that? It looks like Ole might have hit something. That was not his. Let's take another look at that.
That would have been a tire of some other competitor.
Yeah, it looked like it was off of somebody else's car. Let's see.
Mick Chapman?
No. Yeah, it was a car off. It was a tire off another car. It was an OZ wheel with the yellow rims. So that's not all the cars have those. So. Not sure who that was. It was Mick Chapman. He's out of the race with suspension damage. So there's our answer.
Yeah, last retirement.
That's too bad. Gap is now down to 6.8 seconds.
And that's after having so much traffic.
Okay, and Kowalski now puts a lap on Mikael Janek. So that means we have only 5 cars on the lead lap at this point. Blistering pace by the front runners here.
Yeah, you can clearly see who is comfortable in the wet and who isn't.
Yes.
This magnifies all the differences.
Well, the gap is now, now 7 seconds, so it raised a little bit. The thing I'm going to be curious about, okay, here's the leader putting a lap on Brian Janik now.
Both did a 121 in the last lap, but it seems that the Jack's one was slightly better, and that's where the small difference comes from.
Gap is now 5.5 seconds, or a little less than 5.5 seconds, so... and
well,
we've got,
something must have happened to David Jacks.
Yeah, and we're just about coming to halfway now, 44% race completion. So there's still a long way to go. Of course, the other race that was run in torrential conditions like this in Adelaide was 1989. It took 2 starts to get that one underway. You remember that one, correct?
Not right now.
Not right now.
I really have a bad memory for such things. Rarely remember.
Well, that was a race that several drivers refused to take part in, most notably Alain Prost. He did 1 lap after the first start and then pulled in. The second start, Pierluigi Martini was actually in second place, holding up a long, long train of cars, and let Senna get away, which really, I'm sure, annoyed the people behind him, because obviously he wasn't going to be able to maintain that situation. And then when the cars finally got by him, Senna was gone. So
I think that the wet race that everybody remembers is the one where Ayrton Senna in Donington was looking like someone from outer space.
Yes,
or something.
yeah, that is an epic. That was an epic race. Some people call that the greatest lap in Formula One history. The one where he overtook something like 8 cars or something.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
But not just because of the overtaking, but because of the sheer speed difference. You would have thought they were in different formulas.
Well, I mean, Senna was on a different planet in terms of talent compared to a lot of people. I mean, there were a lot of people who had the great misfortune of being Ayrton's teammate in Formula One. Stefan Johansson, for example, at Tolman, and then Gerhard Berger later on at McLaren, always in his shadow. Being Ayrton's teammate was not an easy thing because he was constantly
No, it transit many upcoming promises.
Yeah.
Many people who probably would have delivered to some level, but were absolutely destroyed morally by having him as teammate.
And then they had the brilliant idea of putting him and Prost on the same team, which produced incredible drama. Two #1 drivers on one team. Never really that great of an idea.
Yeah, but you know, man is the only animal that steps twice in the same stone. So
That's
Ron
true.
Dennis ended up with Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso
Yeah,
years later.
and they did it again. It's like they didn't learn anything from that episode, and they did the exact same thing again. It's amazing. You're right. I hadn't thought of that, but you're absolutely right. So Kowalski's about 5.7 seconds. He's getting lots of TV time here. Let's go a little further back in the field here. See what other battles are going
Doing
on.
steady 121s. There's no wonder that he's no. The gap right now increased a bit because David Jacks is also stepping on the throttle. Putting some water between them.
So it looks like Ray Radal might be starting to close on Pascal Mikola just a little bit. Not a whole lot, but at the moment there aren't too many close battles on the track.
Ray has been doing very, very steady laps. Laps have been always in the 123 mark, and Pascal somehow, after losing the lead, has been discreetly fading a bit. Last laps have been a bit more irregular, though they have been also a bit quicker than the ones from Riddle. 23, 22, 21, 22, but with bigger difference. And he's now in the pits.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, that's likely
Saves
the
after
reason
the
that...
race.
No, there he is.
Accident behind. Yves Placé.
Yves Placé? No! There it is. He's into the wall. Let's see if we can run it back here and see exactly what happened. Looks like another garden variety loss of grip. Oh, it happened in the... Oh, he was... This was not for position. Let's see what happens here. Oh, he just loses grip, goes straight on, and runs out of track. Oh, goodness. He lost a lot of parts there for the low speed he was going. That's unfortunate.
Well, we had two races where we had uncharacteristic mistakes from Yves, here and in the Bremgarten GP, where he was also in the lead with a small lapse of concentration retirement. So Kowalski barely over 5 seconds behind David Jacks, but David Jacks has nailed the same lap time as Kowalski in the last lap, so no gain for the German here.
Is he German? I thought he was Polish.
Polish German, I believe.
He's Polish, but he lives in Germany.
Okay.
That's my understanding. Actually, that's another reason he probably maybe he picked this car. It matches the flag.
Had not thought about
Red
it
and
yet.
white. Okay, Jason Whited getting out of the way here, so that's one lapped car out of the way. God, look at the mist that's being kicked up by Ray's car. And that's from a distance, too. One of the more humorous quotes concerning Adelaide and the rain, Murray Walker once asked Johnny Herbert about the red light that's on the back of these cars. He asked him, how close do you have to be to the back of a car? Oh, wait. I'll save that anecdote for a moment because Jan Kowalski's coming into the pits now.
He is?
He is. He's pitting just now. This is another tire change. So apparently...
When he was just 4.5 seconds behind Jan Kowalski.
He must have thought he was losing grip, and clearly if you have fresh tires, you know, he's going to...
Yeah, he had done... lap history shows it clearly. 121 dead, 121.8, 121.7, 121.9. There was a clear tendency to go slower, and he didn't want to make it any longer.
Yeah, well, came in, made the change. But to finish that story about Murray asked Johnny Herbert, how close in the rain do you have to be to see the red light on the back of the car in front of you? And Johnny Herbert replied, well, with your helmet on the lens just about, that's how close you have to be.
I thought he would be answering, you have to be too late.
Well, Senna could answer that question because of his accident he had in 1989 running into the back of Martin Brundle, I believe, his old Formula 3 rival. And there's really good footage of that, too, out of nowhere. McLaren Honda coming out of the mist and slamming into the rear-view camera of Martin Brundle.
Who didn't even know what happened to him.
No, he was oblivious to the fact that this was going on.
So Kowalski after his pit stop is 80 seconds behind David Jacks, but David Jacks has to stop.
Yes, he hasn't. He's definitely going to have to stop at some point.
And Kowalski is certainly on the move again because he in 121.5. And an interesting thing, he did his pit stop to get a wet lap, 134.9, which is almost 1.5 seconds quicker than the lap with pit stop that David Jacks had. So unless David Jacks can do it a bit quicker this time, he's going to lose another chunk of time there.
Yes, the cars are all really spread out at this point. I'm looking for a specific battle going on and not having much luck. Yeah, we've got 12 cars left in the race at the moment. I'm going to run through them right now at the conclusion of lap 44. David Jakes leads. 17 seconds behind him is Jan Kowalski. Third place is Pascal Mikola. Fourth is Ray Rodal. Fifth, Brian Janik. Sixth, Gabriel Del Piccolo. Seventh is Mikael Janik. Juha Boss 2 laps down in eighth. Ole Marius Merville 2 laps down in ninth. Bruno Chacon is 3 laps down in 10th. Gerard Rion is 11th, 4 laps down. And then Jason Whited, the last car running, is 12th, 5 laps behind the race. Those are the only cars on track at the moment.
Oh, looks like Nicolas is having some issues.
Oh goodness, Mikola has lost his front wing. We'll have to see what happened here. It appears that this is another Brabham Straight incident. Let's run it back a bit here. Oh no, this actually happened.
Fortunately, he's in the pits already.
This happened a lot earlier, though. I'm looking at the running it way the hell back here to see if I can find what happened. It happened in. No, it didn't happen at the Brewery Bend. Did it happen at Stag Turn? No, it didn't happen at Stag Turn. Well, this clearly happened a while ago. But he's in pits, getting a wing fix. There he is, rejoining the race.
Probably not too far away from his tire change.
He's
so
still in.
No huge loss for him in that case.
He's still in third place.
Whoa.
Believe it or not, the car that's behind him here is Juha Boss, but it's not a. It's not.
Yes, 2 laps behind.
Yeah, that's not a pass for position there. But Pascal wisely just lets him go. No sense in fighting.
Kowalski has 4 seconds on David Jacks in these last laps, and David Jacks still has to pit. I would say this starts to look a bit grim for his lead.
Well, Kowalski is now going to come up in. Now
Wow,
Kowalski is.
Kowalski's doing 190s.
Oh, good grief!
Incredible. Low 190s. No wonder, now under 13 seconds, and David still has to pit. I think that David is right now regretting not having pit before.
Well, I mean, it's still.
Would surprise me a lot if he would pit in the next one.
We'll see.
Because it's what he just did.
Well, he just came by the pits, didn't come in that time, so let's keep an eye on the green Jordan and
No,
see.
120, yeah, he did a better lap now. But still, more than 1 second slower than Kowalski. 120.999.
Man. So now there are only 2 cars on the lead lap, David Jakes and Jan Kowalski. Everybody else is at least a lap down. So,
12 seconds gap. Yeah, I told you, this guy looks like a winner. There is no strange mistake, it's only a matter of time that he gets the leader and overtakes him. Though one must say that one thing is getting there and a different one overtaking, especially a guy like David Jakes.
catching is one thing, passing is another. He's coming up on Mikkola now. And I believe that's Chacon. Yes. Overtakes Chacon. Relative ease. Oh, goodness!
A spin by Mikula, yes.
Another spin by Pascal. He gets away.
He seems to have lost a bit of the focus during the race.
Well, it's a classic problem of, you know, if you have one incident, it can be compounded by another mistake, then another mistake, then another mistake. One begets another. So that's not, I mean, that's something that all racers are prone to. 13 seconds, so the gap is actually rising now a little bit.
Check because David Jakes didn't do a especially good lap. Yeah, it was a case of Jan Kowalski doing a bad one, probably because of the traffic.
Yeah, it was the traffic he was dealing with. But now
But
I think
as soon as he starts again in the 190s,
well, he's got a clear track in front of him now, so we'll see if, how much of a difference that made at the end of this lap. Comes out of Brewery Bend onto Brabham Straight.
but one thing we can say, if in the end, as it seems, Jan Kowalski is able to get there and maybe even overtake, he will be one of the worthiest winners. Ooh!
Yeah,
Now his car went a lot.
a little bit of a scary moment there, but gathers it back up. It will be a really a very eventful race for Jan, no matter what happens. He's spun a couple of times, made many pit stops, so it has not been a quiet race for him, that's for sure.
But seems to be the winning strategy, because if you discount those incidents, those spins, those 11 seconds that separate him from the lead now would simply not be there. He could be in the lead maybe with much more time.
Probably would be.
Well, you never know. I mean, maybe for David Jakes' car, the best strategy is the one that he's following, because this is obviously an historic edition of the motor cars, have different characteristics, and what suits one doesn't necessarily have to suit the other. So the best strategy for the Jordan might indeed be what David is doing. But I would say that in any case, Jan Kowalski certainly nailed the strategy for his McLaren. 10 seconds now.
All right, let's see if Jakes comes in this time. No.
And Pascal Mikula, you can, well, with all the eventful race he has been having, if he finishes in this third position, he will be really, really lucky.
Yeah, I'll say. You don't have that. I mean, he's had several incidents on track in this race and still running in third place. I mean,
wow, 8.6 seconds. He ate 1.5 seconds.
Oh! Mikkola spins again and almost gets run into by Juha He spins it around again.
I told you.
Back going again. Good grief.
Brian Janik is behind him. They are both now on the same lap. Kula is moving again, but Janik was in the pits, right? Yeah, he's entered the pits.
All right, Brian Janik is pitting now, and he's got his teammate coming in too. They're going to be queuing up at the
front wing.
Yeah, they're going to be queuing up at the. Yeah, he's got to wait because there's only one pit stall per team here, right? So he's queuing up behind his teammate. This is a bit embarrassing.
Oh, Jason Whitehead is also without front wing. Kowalski is right now nearing him, moving away to let Kowalski. But he's also likely diving into the pits at the next opportunity.
Whitehead is the last car on the track. And he's going to be, we'll see if he comes into
Kowalski four-wheel sliding that thing. Amazing.
7 seconds now. Yeah, that was definitely the case. Janik was in the only pit stall for the Minardi team, and just Chacon had the unfortunate timing of coming in at the exact same time.
Not that Bruno will be in a hurry, because
no, but still, it's just...
he's a guy known for his patience.
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably the guy that I've seen in the track. He might be doing this or that better or worse, but not the guy that gets nervous.
No, and I can speak from experience where that's concerned. He and I, for some reason, always end up close to each other in the kart races. And at Mid-Ohio, I was trying to gain a position on him going into the last few laps of the race, and I was putting on magnificent pressure for me, I must say. And he did not respond. I could not rattle him no matter what I did. So he is a pretty cool cucumber.
Kowalski now is using some walls in the style of Bobby Answer with the air cushion.
Oh boy.
You know what that was, the technique that he used for that. His mechanics were impressed when they discovered that he had found out he could do that. He discovered that when he was exiting the corner and coming really fast, letting the car go, somehow there was an aerodynamic effect because of the big wheels that these cars have, that you had a smaller cushion that would break you for hitting the wall. So that allowed him to go even closer to the wall.
I don't recall him ever talking about this on one of the broadcasts. Paul,
I read it about it.
Paul, I invented this in Indianapolis. It's in that Bobby Unser story, right?
Exactly.
Now, did you find that book in the fiction or non-fiction section?
Should have been in the humor one, but...
Yeah, or the humor section.
So 8 seconds now between... No, Kowalski's in the lead. How did that happen? Of course, the pit stop.
David Jakes made a pit stop. God.
Yes.
All right.
Now
well,
yeah, exactly. Look, 1.35. That was that was David Jack's lap with pit stop. So it was already 1 second lower than Kowalski in the pits.
all right.
Therefore, he is now behind. It's a pity because I think everybody was willing to see an overtake maneuver in the track.
Yeah, I was hoping that we would have seen these two actually fight it out. But, who knows? We've got 30 laps to go. A little less
Yes, come on. I mean, one thing is for sure that we will be seeing at least one more pit stop for Kowalski. Not sure what David Jack's strategy will be, but I'm pretty sure that Kowalski will need to be entering the pits for fresh tires at least once more.
So that would make how many stops for him in this race? 3?
4.
4. Good grief. That's a lot of tires.
Yeah, fortunately they are cheap.
Meanwhile, Mikola is still soldiering on in 3rd place, and it looks like he's going. This is interesting. Ray Vidal is actually closing in on him now, and this is a battle for 3rd place. So,
with so many spins, it amazes me that Ray hasn't caught up with him before.
Ray's been driving very steadily, and maybe his patience is going to be rewarded here with a chance to get on the podium. We'll see. looking from the chopper cam. And the gap now, well, we can't see the time here because of the way that our factor reads this stuff, but it's, you can see him there. He's in the background, Ray Ridal. We're looking out the back now of Pascal Mikola's car, and on longer straights you can see the red Ferrari just appearing through all that mist. There he is, just emerging from the last corner. Those of you who did not join us earlier in our broadcast, I'd like to remind you of what's coming up in the next couple of weeks at HSO. We are wrapping up our 2017 season. Next Sunday is the Miami Indy Challenge, where we have 3 drivers. Not 1, not 2, 3 drivers competing for the kart championship. It will be decided at Tamiami Park, and then we have the following week, Brands Hatch 1,000 kilometer race. The 1982 World Endurance Championship wraps up. Those are our last 2 races of the 2017 calendar, and we would like to thank everybody for racing with us, watching us on YouTube, all the likes, all the everyone who follows us. We appreciate your attention and your positive encouragement. It keeps us going.
And the Tamiami finale, that will be quite a thing, because those 2 drivers have to fight it out in one of the most probably uncomfortable places, which is a street course. Any slight error might mean losing a full championship here. And if you're in a position where you have to overtake, then the risks are proportionally much higher than any other track.
Well, it's a track that really you can't make any big mistakes on. It's tight, it's twisty, it's dead flat. You can't count on getting any help from camber in the surface. So, and it's not a particularly fast course either through most of it, but the last turn is going to be very challenging because you can take it flat if you are really brave and really have the car set up well.
That's right. The flat turn, but also very interesting, a blind one.
Yes,
you,
very
you
blind.
Can't see what is on the other side of the apex,
Yes.
the walls.
Also, a little bit of fun for Tamiami. I myself have put in a few Easter eggs for people to find in the pits, in the form of people who are very specific. So,
We work on that track together, and well, it's obviously not the best track in the world because we don't always have the necessary time, but we put a lot of things there. And for example, one thing you can see that is not in many tracks is that the crowd is animated. They
I did
will be
see that.
cheering, applauding, and moving.
I did see that. That's really nice. All right, so the gap between Kowalski and Jakes is 11.8 seconds now. So it's kind of
It's been increasing almost at 1 second per lap.
Yeah.
So unless something strange happens, it seems that Kowalski is now on the route to win. But this is also now a very dangerous situation because before he had an objective, a motivation, and now he can be relaxed, and that could.
It appears that Ray has dropped back from Pascal. Let's see
back.
here. Yeah, he. I was looking to see if Ray did make a pit stop clearly, or had an incident, one or the other, on lap 44. But he was much closer to Mikola than he is now. So apparently he either just lost a bit of time in traffic, something happened.
Yeah, the 2 closest guys right now are Ole Marius Mierbold, who is following Vodovoz.
Okay, Ole. Yeah, he's within striking distance here. We'll see.
He must have
Oh,
done a
not
pit
really.
stop in the last lap because he did a 1:43
did indeed stop last lap. That was his last skid. So.
Yeah, I'm kind of bummed that Ray lost ground to Pascal, because that was going to be our one shot at having a really good battle here. Oh well. So while we have a moment, maybe we can talk a bit about 2018. We made our announcement for the 2018 season a few weeks back. 2 main series are announced for HSO. The 1971 Formula One Championship. And we're going to be using Automobilista for that one, which will allow us to take advantage of some of the really nice features there. The graphics obviously are much more advanced than what we're used to.
So sorry to interrupt you, but Brian Janik is now putting a lot of pressure on Michal Janak for 6th place.
Oh goodness, okay, well now we have a battle to talk about. Good. Yes, he is. He's right with him. Thank you for alerting me to that. We'll go back to that discussion of 2018 later. And these are 2 Ferrari powered cars. Similar power plant. God. Twin screaming Ferrari engines. So we got Ferraris in stereo here. Oh goodness, now they're coming up to lap, I believe is that Chacon? Yes it is. So now we got...
That reminds me what happened to me at Nazareth.
Oh boy. Well, we'll see if well, Chacon moves over and he's going to let them both by here. God, just 3 Ferrari engines in a row here. Oh boy. Janik, as I mentioned, he's very enthusiastic about this series, contributes to the cameras for the tracks, so when he does well here, I'm sure he's really happy.
Well, he should be. He's doing a great race in the wet.
Well,
the wet is obviously the situation when you see the quality of the drivers way beyond the car.
Yes. It looks like Michal Janik is struggling for grip coming out of some of these. Whoa! Oh my goodness. Janik came very close to the tires there coming out of Brewery Bend.
Yeah, the air cushion helped him, eh?
Yes, the Bobby Unser air cushion helped. All right, so yeah, he's clearly getting better purchase coming out of some of these corners. So, oh man, he had to let off there for a minute because I think Michal.
Yeah, this is one of those very dangerous situations with this car because any small touch might mean damage, front wing flying away.
This is also the commentator's worst nightmare: Janik and Janik, Janik and Janik.
That's true.
Oh God, he's right with him now. It's
interesting how well he can follow through the turns without losing aerodynamic downforce.
Well,
but my guess is that Janek's tires are not exactly in the best.
Probably right.
Now.
That's probably the difference.
You can see that his car moves less. He's not forcing it as much. He's simply blocking it.
Yep.
Smoothly, but blocking the way steadily. Trying not to lose much time.
Oh, no! That's it! Okay, Janik goes through. Let's have a look at that in a replay.
He was too optimistic on the gas, and probably also the tires were a bit worn. Because this is a rather quick turn, what you would expect his car to have some downforce.
He hit the inside curb there, so that unbalanced the car. And he was able to get going again without. That takes.
This is likely the result of Brian's pressure, because it's the typical thing that can happen when you enter the corner and you actually have an eye on the mirror to see if the other guy is diving on you. And what happens is that by doing that, you're no longer that precise, and you touch the curb and it lifts the car.
Oh no! Major development. David Jakes is out of the race.
Oh. So what happened to him?
I'm running it back. Not sure what happened. It says accident. But apparently he had contact somewhere. A rare
And Ray Riddle is also putting a lot of pressure on Pascal Mikula.
All right, well, we'll go back to... All right, well, that gap is back. Okay, yes, he has... Ray has gained a considerable...
Well, we were watching what was happening between Yannick Janak.
Yeah.
Riddle has been able to sneak on Pascal Mikula's back door.
Well...
Funnily enough, the difference was so big in the head of the race that David Jacks will still be ahead of them for another lap.
Yeah, he's still going to be on the
returning.
leaderboard as second place for a while until these guys all circulate around one more time. But you can see now, with aid of the tabs, Juha's the next car in line, then Jason Whitehead, and then Pascal Mikula. So you can see there just how much space there is. Jason Whitehead gets out of the way, so now we've got Juha just in front of, as they go into Brewery Bend. Brewery Bend is probably one of the more difficult turns on this track because you are absolutely threading a needle through there, and if you overshoot it, it's very easy to go over the curb on the exit. Juha goes very wide. Let's Ray through. So the order now is Kowalski, Mikula, Riddle, Bill Piccolo. David Jake still is in fifth, but eventually it'll be Janik who is in fifth. Now that's the top five.
And this is developing into the classic attrition race. And there will be big rewards for those that are there alive at the end.
You can just see Mikula's rooster tail as Ray is entering the corner. Pascal's exiting the next one. Oh, on the subject of the Easter eggs at Tamiami, someone already suggested Linda Vaughn.
Linda Vaughn is going to be at Indianapolis 74, I tell you.
Yes, we're going to, that we've already thought of that.
But she will be dressed, I must say.
Sorry guys.
We run a serious website, so...
Yes, we do. So let's see. He doesn't seem to be gaining too much on Mikula at the moment.
No, they were quite close 2 laps ago, but it seems that either Mikula has been going quicker or Ray lost a bit of momentum.
Possibly.
Like that, well, Pascal has certainly been going quicker. When we saw that Ray was close to him, Pascal was doing 128, 126 in the next lap, which is quite slow, probably because of traffic. And then all of a sudden he jumped to 122, 121. That's what has made up the difference again. Ray, in turn, has been doing steady, but 123s. So there's your difference.
Ray's got Juha bearing down on him, but that won't be a pass for position if it happens. So we're coming down to the closing stages of the race soon.
User left your channel.
I believe we've lost Jonathan. Or wait, that was we lost Alberto. Oh.
User joined your channel.
You back?
Yeah, I was seeing if we could interview one of the drivers, maybe David.
Yeah, that'd be good if we could.
But he's in the same channel as the other guys who are driving, so I didn't want to
Oh,
talk. I
yeah.
just sent him a message.
That's funny. They love to drive these guys in one big room, and for me that would just be insanity on a dry track. How are you
Yeah,
gonna
that'd
do?
be like back in the university.
Yeah, I just don't get it. So things have calmed down quite a lot.
Yeah, we're 79% into the race. We're on lap 64 from 81. And I guess by now people are starting to try to settle the situation, not make any errors. Then
Ray
again,
Ridal,
this is one of the most difficult parts of the race.
Sorry,
because you are now tired. I can imagine that Kowalski is really exhausted after all the effort he has done.
Ray Ridal just pitted for tires and lost third place in the process. So Gabriel Del Piccolo in the Lola Ford is now up to third place.
Very meritorious.
Mm-hmm. So the question now is going to be, can Brian Janik do the same thing with Ray Ridal? See how much space he has to him. Well, he's a little ways back, but and he's obviously on worn tires compared to Ray. See what the interval is here. Here comes Ray by us now. We're at the exit of Brewery Bend. Waiting for Brian Janik. Here comes Mervold.
User joined your channel.
Oh, here we have the Jacks.
Gentlemen,
Mario, what happened?
Yeah.
well, it was going pretty good, and I was actually putting pressure on myself because Jan was just driving amazing pace, and I'm pretty sure he had one stop left, so I was just trying to keep the gap to the point that I could come out ahead of him, and got a little too much of that curb.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
one of the curves.
it's unfortunate. I think a lot of people were in that same realm. We've seen a lot of incidents in this race where people clip a curb, and that's just enough to upset the car, and then they end up going into the outside wall on that turn. But a lot of the incidents have been just people losing grip going into a corner. Did you have any instances like that during the race?
I think there were a couple pucker and pray moments. Made it through though up until that one at the kink. A little high speed there. It's hard to get out without serious damage.
Yeah, Brewery Bend is nuts. It's really difficult to do in dry conditions. And here everybody's trying to thread through there when it's wet.
But yeah, no, I gotta tip my hat. Jan had strong pace the whole race. I know he's on a more aggressive tire, but still, he was making up the
he's
pit
had to
stop.
stop 4 times. It
But
hasn't
he
been
was making
without
the time back.
It hasn't been without cost. He has had to make up that time repeatedly because of all the times he's been in the pits. But this is the strategy he chose, and it turned out to be a very good one. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
he certainly didn't reach you before because he had some incidents on track. Unfortunate spins, but fortunate outcomes because he never damaged the car.
yeah,
Otherwise, he was his pace is incredibly quick. He drove masterfully in the rain, we must say.
Well, it's one thing.
Pascal Mikkel has had another spin just now, and I don't know whether okay, Del Piccolo is now closing on him, so that's an important development because it could be, Del Piccolo's looking at possibly moving up to second place if he can get around Mikkola. There's another guy who's got his merit badge today. Mikkola has
He will
had.
end the race. Pascal will end the race with seasickness because he turning around so much.
So you can see Juha and Del Piccolo just behind him, and this would be, the battle would be between Gabriel and Pascal. Ray Radal is actually back there too, not too far.
Now Pascal, even if a lap behind, is trying to follow the leader. Stay on that pace.
Juha gets out of the way.
His driving was a bit erratic because he had no real reference in the track. So maybe that helps him now go a bit quicker and put a bit of a gap with his pursuers.
So we'll have to watch that gap between him and Del Piccolo, see if it increases or decreases. But of course, you know, given the way it's been going for Mikkola, who knows? You know, you could have another slight incident, and that'll. Although he's staying well away of the curbs this time.
It's in his situation, it's incredible that he's still second because he has had lots of incidents, non-serious, but I don't know how many times we count that he has spun. At least 3 that I can remember right now.
So Ray Radal, you remember he pitted for tires a few laps back. Now he is closing back up in Del Piccolo, who he lost his position to. So he's going to be trying to get that back.
Just looking at the lap times, he's closing about a second a lap. So
yeah, he's
definitely
getting
fresh
there.
tires help.
The fresh tires are a definite help for sure. Yeah, he's closing on him for sure. Had good speed coming out of Brewery Bend down to racetrack hairpin. Let's see. No, he's just staying with him right now, not trying anything foolhardy.
And one interesting thing we noted, David, is that the setup of the cars could be very different one from the other, and yet provide similar speeds. I'm talking about this because we saw, for example, in your car, that you had the 4 discs, brake discs, glowing when
Yes.
you were braking, which means that you had probably higher brake pressure or more brake duct, closer brake ducts. Whereas in the case of Jan Kowalski, you never see brake glow, which seems to indicate that he's on a much lower braking pressure, probably to have him not lock. You could also see other cars like Pascal Mikula, one of the Benettons, that only had glow in the front discs, which means that they had very much forward brake bias. So tell us how you adjusted the brake, the pressure and the balance, why you found it like that much better for you.
No, you nailed it. That was one of the things I worked the most on in trying to set the car up. Is
Oh,
the brake
Kowalski
pressure.
has spun.
Oh, and Ray Radal's got to run, so everything's happening at the same time.
Good grief. Here's the replay.
But you had a higher brake pressure, right?
I don't know if it was that high, but I definitely had the bias
There it
back,
is.
so all 4 were working. And I did have the brakes, the duct closed off quite a bit, as much as I could handle, so that's probably why the temps were up there.
But you didn't lock wheels too much.
Nope, having the bias to the back really helped out, because in the wet, the fronts were very prone to locking, so the more bias I could put to the back, the more I could actually use the brakes.
Yeah, we're looking at the replay here of Kowalski's spin, and it just similar thing. Fronts lock, back spins around.
And yet his lap times are very conservative. It's interesting that he was nailing low 190s when he was trying to catch the leader. I think his lap time in the race so far is 119.097. And in these last laps he was doing 21, 22, 23, an occasional high 19. So he seems to be suffering what we had talked about. I mean, syndrome of losing a bit of concentration when you are already in front alone on yourself.
Okay, I can report, gentlemen, that we have exactly 22 minutes and 35 seconds left in this race, and we're on lap...
Contact for
Oh,
third.
no!
They make it through.
Del Piccolo and Radal. Well, this is the battle that I thought was coming. So there's roughly 20 minutes left, and we've completed 71 laps, so we may actually get in the 81 laps before we hit the 2-hour mark. Maybe. Radal.
Yeah, they sure have been driving quite fast,
Yes.
despite the conditions.
Well, there's no life and limb at risk here. Maybe eyeball embolisms, but that's about it. Here comes Ray on the outside. Del Piccolo doing what he's done most of the race, protecting. Oh, contact. Contact, but Ray looks like he's going to be. No, Ray backs off, gives the position back to Del Piccolo. Well, that's been Del Piccolo's MO throughout the entire race. Take the inside line going into racetrack hairpin and prevent people from getting down the inside.
Well, considering that there is only a really good racing line here, it shouldn't be that difficult to protect it as in a dry track.
And that's the one good place for Ridal to try to overtake, because he can take advantage of those 12 cylinders that he has.
I think that Rai was gunning for the next counter curve, but he didn't accelerate quick enough. He wanted to be on the inside for the next turn, but the Piccolo already saw it.
Yeah, exactly 20 minutes to go now. Well, not exactly, but okay, 20 minutes and 45 seconds.
And I can imagine that the Piccolo is using little wing, because if he's able to stay with that car in front of the Ferrari...
Oh boy, here he goes again, down the inside, protecting that line. We'll see if Ray's going on the outside again. Gonna try going around the hard way again. No, that's just too far of a... it's a bridge too far, as they say. Very good mature driving from these two. Oh, here's another try. Del Pic, there's contact again.
They touch again.
Again. And Del Piccolo keeps the position. Wow. Man.
With all the exhaustion that they must have at this point of the race, now getting involved in such a battle.
Yeah, I know. Now you're at the very limits of your concentration. Your brain is fried. You're dead tired. You're basically at a point where you're just so exhausted.
Yeah, and now the cars
Mentally,
with less fuel
physically.
are going quicker than ever.
Yes, light on fuel.
This is also a good opportunity to see how people have set up their cars, because at this point the cars are very differently than at the beginning. And even if it's progressive, because you're burning fuel and somehow getting used to the new behavior of the car, if you haven't messaged your setup enough, you could easily find yourself with an undrivable car at this stage of the race.
Looks like a ping issue there for a moment with Del Piccolo, but this is another. I think this is another situation where Ray's. Yeah, he won't have a chance here. Although he doesn't have really an opportunity to do anything there.
The fact that he isn't being able to overtake Gabriele on the straights, either he has much wing that doesn't give him enough momentum before the straights, or that he's losing too much traction at corner exit and doesn't manage to get enough speed.
One of the challenges I was having when I was behind somebody at that final turn before the straightaway, the kink there, either you get the spray which interferes with your vision, or the aero effects, you get some aero wash and you get some understeer in that corner. So it's very hard to get stay close behind someone and get the run down the straightaway.
I also can imagine that the difference between a stitch of a second putting the throttle down at corner exit when you are not sure about the grip in the rain can simply mean that you lag 5-10 kilometers per hour at the end of the straight.
Oh,
Ray was on at that time.
Ray might have a real opportunity here. He got out of the corner faster than Del Piccolo. He's got a head of steam. He's coming down the outside. No. Thinks better of it.
That's what I was talking about. In previous laps, he didn't seem to come out of the corners quick enough.
Brewery bend.
But Del Piccolo is making a beautiful defense with an
Yes.
inferior car.
Absolutely, yeah, and with an inferior car that should be mentioned.
And
Lola
not playing
Ford.
dirty at all. I mean,
No, that's the other thing that's nice is to see these guys are driving very cleanly. Here comes, he's going to go to, contact, and gets through, gets the position, but basically, poor Del Piccolo had to take to the kitty litter there.
there was a bit of lack of coordination between both, but
Yeah,
let's see what happens now.
Oh, Ray's gone wide.
Ray went wide. Oh, goodness! They're coming back now. Oh, shoot.
Oof.
Let's take a look at that on a replay. Ray comes into the corner is in another situation. He just ran a bit wide and went on to over the curb.
Now we'll see how the wing situation is going to play out when the order's reversed on the straightaway.
You can see Del Piccolo pulling out there just to get some clear vision.
And just a note regarding a comment I made before, Pascal Mikula is still on Jan Kowalski's tail. So
Yeah, but there's two
it
laps.
seems indeed that for him lacking a reference was very damaging to his lap times.
Yeah.
He's 2 laps behind, but he's sticking there behind the leader. So the pace is definitely there.
So Ray is back into third place now. We've mentioned it before. This is the car that Gianni Morbidelli had his lone Ferrari start with. He was he got into the seat after Ferrari fired Alain Prost, and in the actual race he finished 6th, which gave him 1/2 of a point because of the half points rules for races that don't go the full don't go a certain distance.
Speaking about the real race, I think this race should be red flagged and counted back till before I had my incident. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, I'm sure you'd love that.
You'd love that to stop at lap 14, yeah?
Well, we
It's the
said
real
we
one.
said earlier we don't have Tim Schenken here to tell us we have to stop. So
I was waving my hands. None of the marshals paid attention.
no, they wouldn't have.
That complaint to François Remen.
Yes. All right, so let's see. So that battle's really stabilized for the moment.
3 laps to go. No, sorry, 4 laps to go.
Yeah, it appears that we are going to finish the race with time to spare. So that's honestly something I was not expecting. I was sure that we were going to do the 2-hour limit.
And another interesting thing is that now that Kowalski is on the lead on his own and he is not pushing the car too much, he hasn't had the need to pit again.
Mm-hmm.
He's stretching it compared with his previous stint on the same tires.
Well, you guys, we were mentioning 2018 earlier briefly. We did our announcement already. The 2 series that are going to be coming up, 1971 Formula One using Automobilista. I was testing Automobilista earlier. One of the features I really like about that game, or that platform, is that you can pick up dirt and grass on the tires when you go off, which is an interesting detail. And then as you get back on the track and run a bit, they eventually go back to being clean.
Then also the track is more dynamic.
Yes.
Then the racing line builds up in rubber and becomes quicker. Whereas the other part becomes increasingly less and less grippy compared with a good one, which of course has a big influence in what you do.
And the other major series we're going to have is still an R factor, but something that a lot of people I think are anticipating: the 1971 Canadian American Challenge Cup, or Can-Am.
That's right. Some of the most powerful race cars ever to see the light of day.
Yes.
Or beast cars.
The beasts. Cars
Up
that
to 700 750 horsepower
Normally
on those
aspirated.
cars.
Massive.
Car technology from the early 70s.
Yes. That is a series we are very much looking forward to.
I think everybody's looking forward to that.
Yeah. I mean,
Coming close to the end, I'll let you guys go. Thank you so much for putting everything on. And just major congratulations to all the finishers. That was definitely a challenge out there. And certainly to Jan, if he holds it out, that was crazy pace, man. Good job.
yes, because as Murray Walker would say, the conditions are appalling. So, all right.
They are.
Thank you, David, very much, and congratulations on winning this championship.
Yes.
Came up about 25, 30 laps short in this one, but it was fun being out there. Really great looking track. Take care, gentlemen.
All right, take care. So, watching Jan
User
Kowalski
left
now.
your channel.
Jan Kowalski, when he comes to the line this time, will be given the 1 to go signal. Got a Ferrari pulling to the side there. Oh, that's just because he's being lapped. It was Mikhail Yanek. So, really an impressive drive from Jan Kowalski today. Had to deal with several incidents along the way. Made many pit stops, but in the end chose the right strategy, Alberto.
Yes, you can clearly tell one of the most important things. He had prepared the race very well. He had scrutinized well the options, knew what was possible, and he executed it perfectly. He just had some small errors, those small spins, but they didn't hurt in the end. So
well, the other
let's
thing
see
that
if he can do it in the end, because you know it's always until the end anything is possible, but so far everything's looking great for him.
all right.
One
So
lap to go.
and the other thing to remember is that the added challenge of this race is having to come up with 2 setups, one for qualifying and one for the race. And it's not a simple matter of putting more fuel in. The setups would have to be completely different in terms
Yes,
of
the
suspension.
difference, especially in terms of wings, aerodynamics, and that. And in this case, normally in aerodynamic cars, you don't care too much about the suspension. You tend to put it stiff until it doesn't bottom and that. But that's because you run between qualifying and race. Very little difference in wing at most. But here, the difference is huge because of the range. So yes, as you say, it's developing 2 different setups. Though Kowalski didn't really make a great qualifying. He was obviously already very centered in the race itself.
Yeah, it's clear that was his focus as he comes to the line. Jan Kowalski wins the Australian Grand Prix in the McLaren
the happiest
Honda.
man in the water today.
Yes. Comes through the first turn to get congratulations. Let's have a look and see. Here comes Pascal Mikola. He's a couple of laps adrift, but he's going to come in and take 2nd place. Very good drive from him considering all the
Luckiest second
incidents.
place guy
Yeah, there
in a
he
lot of
is.
time.
Taking 2nd place. Very well done.
How many races can you do in your life where you can get away with so many spins and incidents and get this
Ray Vidal in 3rd place for Ray Vidal. Very good drive for him. Del Piccolo comes in 4th. Excellent race for those 2.
and a top 5 for Brian Janik.
Yes, here comes Janik in. Brian Janik takes top 5. His name will be on the main website page. There he is. Great race from Brian, and beautiful cameras that he created for this event.
Texas, Michal Janak, last point position, point-paying position.
He's already in the
And
garage.
the one who
Juha
gets the
and
most disappointment is Juha. Yes, just one position short of the points-paying one.
the only car left to motor in is Chacon. Here he comes, and he'll be taking 10th place. So the top 6 that will get points in the final race of the year: Jan Kowalski wins it, Pascal Mikola 2nd, Ray Vidal on the podium in 3rd, Gabriel Del Piccolo is 4th, Brian Janik 5th, and Mikhail Yanik gets the last point for Ferrari in 6th. So that's the race, and the last round of the 1991 F1 season. I don't believe we have Jan on TeamSpeak, so unfortunately we don't really have the capability of interviewing the winner. Maybe we can talk to Pascal if he wants to come in here. But, so that's the end of this series. As we mentioned before, we have the Miami Indy Challenge next week, and then the Brands Hatch 1,000 kilometers the following week, and those are the last two races for 2017.
Dropping a message to Pascal.
Yep.
User joined your channel. User joined your channel.
So,
User
we have
joined your channel.
Got a bunch of people in the booth
now.
Yeah.
So we start in finishing order. Pascal,
Yes.
you are the luckiest second place guy in history.
I wish I was. I wish I was even more lucky. And well, let's just say I spun too much. I spun way
I
too
don't
much.
think that you would ever see a race where someone spins and has so many incidents so frequently and yet manages to get to second.
Yeah, at the end I almost spun. At the end I almost stalled the car when I spun in front of Bruno. I just cursed like big time.
I can imagine that.
And
Lots of asterisk swearing in your chat probably.
But let's say I was really damn lucky that the two times I hit the barrier or the tire barrier with the rear, I was very lucky that it didn't knock the rear wing off. I was lucky that it just damaged my rear suspension, just damaged my rear suspension. But I kind of had bad luck from the beginning. At the start, when Victor bumped me in the side at the start, that already bent my steering a little bit. But
yeah, those first few corners were quite harrowing to watch from our side. What can you tell us about your brake balance, Pascal? Because we noticed that you were having really hot front brakes, glowing red, but the back brakes didn't seem to be glowing at all. Did you have most of your brake bias on the front?
Well, I can tell you my brake bias precisely was 58 to 42.
Yeah, 58, that's quite in the front. David Jack said 50-50 or 50.5.
He seems to like it very equal, the brake balance. When he's giving me a setup to test, I always lock the rear wheels because I just cannot handle those balanced brake bias. I have to have it way to the front. Because I would rather have a front wheel lock up than the rear wheels lock up. And yeah, I noticed that and I had to adjust it a bit more to the front. I had it I think 57 to 43 before, right before the race. And I had to adjust it more to the front because I experienced my rear wheels locking up when I was braking. So I had to do that. But yeah, I also noticed my brakes getting very hot. So, but I was actually never worried about them failing or anything.
Okay. So, next, Jaljanak, Ferrari man.
Last race, terrific for me. In the test, I can't set up the car for me, and finally, in the last minute before the race, I little changes, and the car was little better. But in about third lap, Gabriele hit my rear end of the car. And the steering wheel wasn't in center, and turning to the right was little less turning to the left. The car was unstable. I was I was I must be very carefully on the throttle, on the brakes, and in the fifth lap before the end, I hit the wall a little, and the steering wheel was like there is a big dead zone in the center. So
You never looked comfortable during the race. Now we know what the reason was.
the car was
You never went into the fights. When a quicker car was coming, you were very careful there.
I was fighting the car, not the other drivers. So I let them by. I didn't want any trouble. And finally, a nice point in the season, I am the driver with most races finished in points.
Yeah, I mean, you came home sixth and scored another point. So, and by the way, we hadn't mentioned it before. We did briefly, but you're second in this championship. You know, I mean, obviously, for much of the series, David was in a class by himself, but you had a lot of really good performances in this series. So, you know, that shouldn't be forgotten.
I may be too old for this kind of racing. It lost me too much of the power, and I'm quite happy this is the final of the season.
Well, you did a very professional drive with a damaged car, so you should be happy.
Yeah, I noticed, Michael, you said you were very unlucky with your car, and I'm actually, you know, you finished quite well. That's really nice. Congratulations for that.
Thank you, and congrats to you too.
I just one question: was it mandatory to use full effects in the options? Because I just read that Philippe Henrique didn't turn his effects off.
Well, you should do that, but there is no way that we can police that.
Yeah, I mean, the best we can do is encourage people to do that, because, I mean, honestly...
Oh, it looks better.
Well, I mean, it's the full effect. I mean, the only reason that you would turn those effects off is obvious, so you can see better. But that's kind of lame, you know. I mean, if it were me, I wouldn't do that, because it's like, you know, where's the sport in that? You know,
that's part of the fun. That's part of the challenge. So
there is a small justification, especially for slower drivers if they see better. But otherwise, if you're a sportman, you likely have to keep them on.
The other instance I would think of is if you had a computer that was built, you know, eons ago. Maybe then, you know, it can't keep up with all the spray. In a situation like that, maybe, you know.
True that.
It was dangerous. I didn't see the lapping cars behind me in the mirror. I only see blue flag and no car behind me, because the spray was in the mirrors, filling the.
That's the thing in wet races. You don't see what's behind you.
Did you guys have considerable difficulty seeing ahead of you in a pack?
Oh, I have never actually really been in a pack in a high-speed part of the track, but I can tell you, when I was lapping someone who was about as fast as me, when my car had like considerable damage, it was very difficult to find the braking point on the back straight, because, for example, once, I don't exactly know when or where. It was while I was fighting Jakes for the lead. I almost hit him in the side there in the hairpin after the back straight. We both had to try and do evasive action to not hit each other. So that was very difficult to find the breaking point there.
I was counting where there was the bridge behind over the track, the blue one, and count to 4 and then slam the brakes.
So, finally, Vodovoz.
Well, I tried to catch Michael Janak, but then with a Benetton hitting a wall, and that was it. I wasn't doing too badly at the start. I think I had 4th or 5th. And I thought with one stop I could pull it off, and then I hit that spinning AGS, which made me take a very long pit stop with my steering out of angle, and that was it. All I could do was cruise home behind Michael. Too bad.
I'm with you. I know the feeling with the wheel to the one side.
I couldn't do anything. Sometimes I gained 2 seconds, but the car was 3 seconds a lap too slow than what it should have been. No, if the car would have worked, it would have been nice, but it didn't.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for recounting the race for us. Unless we have any further observations, I think that'll probably close out the broadcast. I want to thank Alberto for doing color commentary with me. Very helpful and very authoritative as always.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And
it was a pleasure to be here.
So for Alberto and Jonathan and Juha and Mikael and Pascal, this is Jason saying so long from Adelaide.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
See you next year.